It's great to welcome back to the program Dr. John Gartner, founder of Duty to Warn, co-host of Shrinking Trump, and former assistant professor at Johns Hopkins University Medical School. It's always great to have you on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always great to be here.
So listen, the first of what we believe will be two presidential debates is happening this week. It has become effectively a referendum, not on tax policy, not on foreign policy, not on educational policy, not on the border. It's become effectively a referendum on cognitive decline.
Yes.
And the stakes feel very high, not
Yes.
on the policy basis, but because
Right.
Audiences will be watching. Is either or are both of these candidates suffering from some kind of cognitive issue here? What we saw first as years of saying Biden is so demented, he doesn't know what day it is, has been supplanted in the last 96 hours with a raising of expectations. Oh, Biden will do well, but because he's going to be on something. Biden will do well because the moderators will be on his side. So the Trump side clearly seems to be changing their tune because setting expectations so low has backfired. Let's start with a very basic question. How
Sure.
much through the television in a 90-minute event, the likes of which we are going to see, can we glean about the cognitive state of either candidate?
Well, that's a great question. And some of it depends on, whether Trump is having a good day or a bad day, because he really varies immensely in his cognitive capacities. Sometimes he's relatively normal, and other times he's literally babbling incomprehensibly, incoherently. My partner, Harry Sig, my co-host on our podcast, Shrinking Trump, what he's observed and keeps bringing up is Trump is most disorganized at night.
Mm-hmm.
He really does seem to sort of sundown in a way. And so he thinks that and once Harry said that on our show, after that, every single event that Trump was scheduled for was a daytime event. His little softball interview with the Fox and Friends B team, where the toughest question they asked him about his prosecution was, "You've been through a lot. How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then you see the little golf carts going by in the daytime because, Harry thinks they figured out that he's only compos mentis in the daytime. So in terms of how likely are we to see Trump's cognitive decline on camera, it's good news that it's late at night. That's good news in terms of the chances of it sort of really evidencing itself more glaringly. Also, it's unstructured. It's not, what he does is very carefully curated events, unlike the Biden campaign, which are, very chaotic in the events. And he's wandering around somewhere because, they made him look like he was wandering around a field, in Italy because he was saying hello to someone who had parachuted down.
Yes.
So they have these very sketchy kind of organized events. But everything he does is orchestrated. He comes to the music, to a very friendly crowd. He feeds off the energy of the crowd. There's no crowd here. There's no crowd for him to pander to feed off of their energy. That's a big factor. And then finally, the fact that it's not scripted, that he doesn't have a teleprompter. So I actually predict that we're more likely to see him garble and ramble and make no sense. What I hope is that Biden will take advantage of it. What I hope is that Biden will point it out in real time. I think that he would say, "Man, I don't even know what you're talking about. You're not even making any sense. I mean, this has been happening a lot with you. You just talk and it's incomprehensible. You say that I can't put two sentences together. Recently, Aaron Sorkin on CNBC said that a bunch of CEOs who were your supporters left the room not your supporters.
Andrew Ross Sorkin, I think you mean.
Andrew Ross Sorkin. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Whatever I said was wrong. Andrew Ross Sorkin. Strike that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can edit that out.
Listen, I mean, to talk about Biden for a second, Biden does sometimes lose his train of thought, and he has dealt with a stutter, and that can play in a particular way in a one-on-one debate.
Yes.
How would you suggest Biden prepare for the debate given that tendency?
Well, I probably don't have any advice for him on how to manage his stutter. I think he's probably more of a professional in that than I am.
Sure.
I think the general advice that I have, I do have several pieces of advice that I'm hoping to share on this show, hoping that maybe it'll travel through the airwaves, just maybe, and reach somebody. One is that he has to not let Trump dominate him. These debates are very primitive alpha male contests, between, if you saw Planet of the Apes, right? This is Koba against Caesar, you know what I mean? And it's a mano kind of battle.
Mm-hmm.
And really people judge it with the primitive parts of their brain that are very simian. You know what I mean? They make a lot of the Haley voters, people who have voted against Trump, who don't like Trump, right? Half of them have said they're going to vote for Trump. And the most common reason they give is that Biden is cognitively demented, or they just say he's a strong leader. He seems strong. And so that hypomanic aggression that he has, that dominance, right? I thought the best line that Biden had in the last debate was, "Will you shut up, man?" He's setting a limit with the bully. He's standing up to him. Now, of course, Frank Luntz, who is a Republican pollster, said that was his worst line from the debate. He said that in the newspaper today, and basically advised him, to be presidential and I guess go high, like Michelle Obama said. Well, of course, Frank Luntz wants him to lose. So the fact that Frank Luntz went to the trouble of specifically saying, don't say that, and I'm telling you that was his best line. My point is that he needs to interrupt the interrupter. He can't just count on them cutting off the mics. He's got to go head to head, and he's got to have one-liners and zingers ready to use when he interrupts. It can't just be "shut up, man," over and over again. So that's one thing. And then I think he needs to use those moments to spotlight how bad Trump is. So once he's talking, he can say, you can't follow the rules of the debate, just like you can't follow any laws. That's why you're a convicted felon. That's why you're indicted for trying to overthrow the government. That's why you're indicted for stealing documents. That's why you've been sued by 1,000 people. That's why you've been adjudicated a sexual predator. It's like you break every rule. You violate every boundary. In other words, take that moment, right, and magnify it to be a window into his psychopathology.
Allegations have surfaced of Trump and Biden being on drugs before and during performances of different kinds. I was recently on Fox News, and this guy, Will Cain, started talking about it. And I said, well, Will, tell me which drug do you think Biden would be on? And he tried to shift the burden of proof. But long story short, the idea of Adderall. Now, you're not a psychiatrist; you're a psychologist, and we're not hiding that. But the idea of Adderall has been thrown around, which, as I understand, for someone of Biden's age who does not have ADHD, could actually make him seem jittery, frustrated, and actually kind of be like a counterproductive drug for a debate performance. Provigil has been mentioned. The half-life of Provigil doesn't really make sense. I guess generically promoting wakefulness may be something that's useful, but then eventually you sometimes get to like, well, he probably took a bunch of coffee, which is interesting because Trump drinks, I don't know how many Diet Cokes a day.
Oh, no. If you have to drink coffee to perform, then there must be something
a
wrong
problem
with you.
But the caffeine one is interesting because the number of Diet Cokes Trump is drinking every single day, it's probably a crazy amount of caffeine. So I don't know that caffeine is really where we end up. So that's on the Biden side. On the Trump side, we recently interviewed a psychiatrist who said he has observed signs that Trump does take a stimulant and likely does have ADHD involving pupil dilation and sort of different things. So what's your sense right now of the drug story generally on both of these guys?
It's actually very simple. Okay. First of all, just remember your Rosetta Stone, right? Your Trump to English dictionary. Everything is projection. It's very simple. Yes, he's accusing Biden of being on, performance-enhancing stimulants because he's on performance-enhancing stimulants. Period. You can go through all the evidence and the doctors who have said it and the pupils that have been, shown to be dilated and the white powder shown coming out of his nose after major addresses and, Candyman Jackson, that is one of his main, other than lying about Trump's health, his other big job was to, drug up everybody in the White House, mostly with stimulants. That was the drug of choice of that gang. And obviously, it's just obvious that Don Jr. is a go-get. I just don't think you can deny it. He just looks like someone who's playing a part in a movie, trying to be the cokehead.
So let
me get to, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Because it's a double lie. So first there's the projection, right? the Biden is on the performance enhancing drug. But then you see how the Republican lie machine really works. Because and we discussed this at length on Shrinking Trump, because one of the things we do on Shrinking Trump is look at how the press is covering the cognitive issues of Biden and Trump. That's what's really interesting, and how slanted it is. And so we have a section we call good news, bad news. But bad news meaning bad newspaper men and good newspaper men who are basically reporting honestly or dishonestly. And shoot, why was I talking about this? Which piece were we just talking about? The
just your general view on it, the plausibility of such a drug.
No. Well, first of all, there is no such drug. That's the punchline. Okay. But the head of the doctors caucus, the Republican doctors caucus, said on Fox that in his medical opinion, he had proof. He said he had medical proof that Biden was on a what was it? Like a dementia reversing drug. See, now they've had to speculate. Well, what's the drug? So now they're going, well, maybe it's Adderall, maybe. But originally they were making up a drug that didn't exist. Okay. But he was, like Harry said,
in other words, Biden as president may have access to something that no one else does.
Right. It's a magic drug, a magic potion. It's a magic potion that's making him be able to talk. That's the ticket. And the medical doctors caucus, they have medical proof that it's a magic potion. So there. And then actually Maria Bartiromo actually said, well, she said, actually, like a journalist, she said, well, you have proof. What is it? He said, well, I'll talk to you about it off camera.
Right. So you just don't buy. I mean, it's like they're probably all on coffee or Cokes that have caffeine. But beyond that, it's really only with Trump that we would have a reason to believe there's a stimulant in play.
Absolutely. The whole thing is a big lie. But the fact that we're even talking about it shows how effective their propaganda is.
It has been incredibly effective. It has been, even at rallies, you have random Trump supporters who have sort of accepted this as it must be true because I'm hearing it. Dr. Gartner, when it comes to the average person watching this debate, what is it that, aside from the policy that they may or may not learn about, I don't know how much policy discussion there's going to be, we will see. How would you recommend to folks looking to assess these individuals in the way that you do? What should they be paying attention to and looking for?
Well, whether they make sense, whether they tell the truth, whether they can form an English sentence, whether all the words they use are actually words and not just random sounds. I mean, they're so, and I think when he goes off the rails, we need again to point it out. But I think the other part of his strategy is, as I said, to be dominant, to interrupt. But once he interrupts, then to go with what I call the diarrhea of lies. Okay, that just absolutely flood the zone with toxic, crazy lies, one after the other, so you wouldn't even know where to begin to address the toxic sludge. And this is where I think Biden needs to say things like, the only thing that comes out of your mouth are lies. It's like a diarrhea of lies coming out of your mouth.
In other words,
one of the things you have to do is say, you're the liar. Oh, you're the liar. But now, what is he going to say? Oh, you're the diarrhea. Like, no, we got to slap him down like we're in the schoolyard, right? In such a way that it's such a good rank, you know what I mean? That actually it's hard for him to come back from it.
Because the format itself does limit your ability to rebut a handful of lies in a minute. And that can be a difficult thing to deal with. One of the things I've thought is there are likely 12 to 15 general issues that are likely to come up. And one way to approach this would be Biden should have a sort of canned way to address if it gets anywhere near abortion and bodily autonomy and Roe v. Wade and women's rights and traveling for abortions between states. Here's the 3 points that he needs to hit. When it comes to immigration, do you think that also from a memory standpoint, that is an effective tool for debates in which the response times will be relatively short?
Well, I think there has to be 2 tracks. One is to show what a dastardly fellow he is over and over and over again. And the other is to present 2 visions of America. I think that Biden cannot be too apocalyptic. I think he really has to say, folks, Donald Trump has said he'll be a dictator from day one. And you know what? I think he's telling the truth. We escaped a king. We escaped a mad king, and he's running to be another one.
Mm.
And I think he's telling the truth. I want you to think about the kind of America your children grow up in a dictatorship, and think about the soul of America. This country will be more like Russia. Do you think we'll have another free and fair election if Donald Trump has control of all of the organs of government? Do you think that you'll be able to speak freely when he's throwing people who say bad things about him in jail? He's not going to make America great again. He's going to permanently destroy America and make us Russia, which is, of course, Vladimir Putin is the evil master that he serves. Vladimir Putin is the one who helped get him elected in 2016. Vladimir Putin is the one who he had kissed his ring in Helsinki, brought them into the Oval Office, and now is doing their bidding and trying to talk down the Ukrainian war and get them to give up, because he is Putin's tool. Oh, you're the tool. But the thing is to really paint a dark, dark picture of what Trump's, and then say, I remember America that was a city on a hill. Ronald Reagan talked about that city on a hill, welcoming all of the immigrants, to freedom. And he was speaking about John Winthrop's image, the Puritans that founded New England. They wanted America to be a city on a hill. People, the light in the temple is in danger of going out. Their work may be snuffed out. This election isn't really about just whether you vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. It's what kind of world do you want to leave to your children? What kind of society do you want them to live in? I think you have to make it's so dark and so dire, and keep making the vision dark and the person who's pushing the vision dark, and just keep hammering it and hammering it and hammering it.
All right, Dr. John Gartner, we're going to be watching. Always appreciate your insights. Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always love being on your show.